housekeeping there. And just again, want to welcome those of you who've just arrived to the 2022 Fall BFA Senior Thesis Conversation. My name is Suzanne Cockrell. I'm an individualized and graduate fine art faculty here at California College of the Arts. And I am really happy to host this conversation with students of mine in my senior projects class this semester. And it's really a moment to sort of reflect and celebrate their work and dedication to art making, you know, during their time at CCA. We want to also welcome their family and friends again who are joining us. And these students who have been really busy the last couple of days de-installing their BFA senior exhibition that was at the SOMARTS Cultural Center in San Francisco. I think some of you parents and friends were able to be there. It was very festive. It was a super great space and exhibition, and generally just to be in person again after 2 years exhibiting and meeting in classes online. So I want to begin this conversation today with the land. At CCA, we are learning how to practice land acknowledgement and to steward accountable actions in order to teach and promote greater public awareness of Native sovereignty and cultural rights. Land acknowledgement is a transformative act, and it's meant to confront our place on Native lands and to build mindfulness of our present participation in colonial legacies. Our campus, CCA, is located in Yelamu, also known as San Francisco, on the unceded territories of the Ohlone people, who are continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon Indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systemic destruction of their communities and culture. And in honor of Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future here and around the world, we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those of the lands from which you are joining us today. And if you are unsure of the land where you're currently residing, we encourage you to visit nativeland.ca. And maybe, Anna, you could put that link in the chat. So today we are really happy just to get started. We have 4 individualized studies seniors who will present their work: Nick Hampton, Jennyfer Medina, Jamiani Gray, and Camille Gomez. Each student will give a 10-minute presentation introducing their work. After each presentation, our guest artists and respondents will have a 10-minute conversation with the student, providing feedback and asking questions. Please note that we don't have time in this event for public Q&A, but we encourage you to drop comments and affirmations for seniors in the Zoom chat. The chat transcript will be saved at the end of the event and will be sent to seniors as a sort of, as a kind of guest book for them. And we recommend, again, that you keep your mic muted during the event. So I would love to introduce our respondents before we begin the presentations. I'm really happy to have my old friend, Ana Teresa Fernandez here, zooming in from Mexico. And Ana Teresa was born in Tampico, Mexico. Her family emigrated to California in 1992. And since then, she's been based in San Francisco. Her practice explores the politics of intersectionality through time-based actions and social gestures that reference land art, performance, and history painting. Her multidisciplinary practice also often begins with performance and expands to video, photography, painting, and sculpture. Her work is in many national and international permanent fine art collections. Major public projects include On the Horizon, which was featured in an exhibition entitled Land Zen, organized by Foresight Foundation here in San Francisco last year. Collaboration is a core value in Fernandez's work and includes projects such as Somos Biblis with Arlene Correa Valencia, who is an alumni of CCA and friend, and Truth Farm with Guadalupe Garcia Correa Valencia and Ronald Real. Welcome, Ana. And Taro, I also want to welcome as our second guest respondent, he's also currently the chair of the Individualized and Sculpture programs at CCA and knows these students over many years here at CCA. He is an interdisciplinary installation and social practice artist, which often focuses on building a relationship between physical settings and the people with a specific socio-political background through their performances, conversations, and singing. Many much more information you can see about these artists on their website, and I'll pop those into the chat as well. So thank you both for being here. And so Nick is going to be our first presenter. And Nick, if you are you're welcome to share your screen and get started whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Hampton, and I'm very excited to be sharing myself and my work with you today. I was born in Edinburgh, Texas, raised in Eugene, Oregon, and now based in San Francisco, California. My practice is painting and drawing and book arts, but also extends to textiles and printmaking. Who knew that when you put two tennis players together, you get an artist? I grew up surrounded by the sport, absorbing the language, the muscle memory, the individual and team relationships. Being coached by my parents in something that involves so much movement and mental and physical strength was a big factor in shaping me into the person that I am. My biggest influences are my family. My dad sees each moment as an opportunity to learn, relearn, and engage with what's around us. My mom, who cooks heart and stomach warming Filipino dishes that bring me to tears. My older brother, who supports me endlessly and makes me laugh until my sides hurt. My family didn't teach me how to paint or draw or how to look at art, but they taught me how to look at life, how to listen to others, communicate openly, give love, receive love, and hold on to things that are meaningful. This led me to kapwa, which is the word and theme of my thesis. Kapwa is the overarching term that stands at the core of Filipino humanism, defined as the recognition of the self within the other. The term can be divided in half, ka and puwa. The affix ka means shared, while puwa is the root word for puwang, which translates to space, both physical and psychological. Puwang connotes a gap, as if something is missing. However, when joined with ka, a bridge is formed and the gap is filled. Kapwa changes the condition of separation to union. This is the foundation of my work as I practice, create, and live in mindfulness of the shared identity. My paintings and drawings depict non-binary bodies that reflect deep thoughts, traumas, longing, relief, and bliss. I focus on the importance of body language and how specific poses or shifts in posture can reveal the unspoken. These figures are built with layers of mark making, flowing between detailed precision to large emotive brushstrokes. I treat the lines as intuitive scripture. This piece is tiled kaibigan. Depending on which syllable is stressed, can either mean friend or lover. This word inspired the work as a slight nuance of pronunciation parallels the borders of love and how they bleed into one another. Platonic to romantic, the uncertain in between. Sketching is such a big part of my practice. I consider myself a compulsive doodler. Similar to journaling, I view these as entries. So in my show, I included 3 sketchbooks. These are some pages from the first one that dates December 2021 to April 2022. These are the second book dating April to October 2022. And these are from my most current and in-progress sketchbook that began at the end of October. Some of these sketches have become the blueprints for paintings. Sometimes I look at multiple of them, dissecting the elements of preference to build a completely new image. This piece is titled Ang Araw at Buwan ay Sibling. It translates to the sun and the moon were siblings. It is representative of my own bond with my older brother, as well as other sibling relationships in my life. It is about the tension and harmony of difference, separation of time, age, or space. Another element of my practice that is very important to me is color. One of the best questions that a professor asked me was, where does your palette come from? I came to the realization that it was from 2 aspects of my life that I didn't think related to my art, music and tennis. Growing up walking on terracotta courts and chasing a neon streak of green is such a vivid image, and I naturally gravitate towards those colors. My background as a violinist and musician gave me the vocabulary of building chords, which I transposed to color. I realized that when I paint, it's like composing a song. I discovered recently Corbin Bumiter's musical color wheel, which speaks to this. He arranged the circle of fifths into a wheel that forms both triads of color and notes. This combination of color influence, both instinctual and formulaic, create this index that I can refer to and manipulate as I work. This painting is titled Mahal Kita Apo, which means I love you, grandchild. I have a very specific childhood memory of laying my head in my Lola's lap and my feet in my Lolo's. Lola would smooth my brow line as if ridding me of all worry, and Lolo massaged my feet and hands. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep. I think back on it as a moment of healing and pure love. Nostalgia and nurture are key in my bookmaking practice. Like my paintings, there is a relational aspect, but instead of stroke and figurative body language, it is reliant on tactility and written language. The physical touch of the book from cover to content matched the emotional touch of the narrative. Kain tayo means let's eat, a phrase of generosity and celebration.
Kain tayo.
It is an invitation to not only consume food, but share a culture, a history, and lifestyle. This book is made up of felted illustrations that depict Filipino recipes that have been passed down from my Lola to my mom to me. The playful and plush quality of the book speak of comfort, just like the food itself. You can see on the right the imagery, and on the left, a pocket containing a note card with actual instructions on how to make the dish, giving this piece functionality. A year later, I have made a sequel that has another set of 8 recipes called Kain Tayo Again, Let's Eat Again. Overall, this book is much more revised in construction and concept. I also made the decision to letterpress the recipes, which are written in the voices of my Lola and Mom. I spoke with them on the phone and directly transcribed their words, inclusive of accent and personal colloquialism. There's something very special in the tedious process of setting type and forming the words of family tradition, which then would be physically pressed into the paper. I see these actions of letterpress as very ritualistic, paralleling the ritual of food and cooking. And these are photos of the process of setting the type and a close-up of the recipe cards. These are button books that I've been making for the past couple of years. They are small accordion-style books that use found buttons as covers. Inside are positive affirmations. Over time, I've made them in batches and given them to friends and family. And for my show, I made them with the intent that people take one home with them. The reason for the title, A Love Language, is because it is a combination of how I express my love, which is through gift giving and words of affirmation. My final piece that I have to show is actually the oldest, made in 2020 during the lockdown. It is called Dahil Sayo, which means because of you. It is the title of my great-grandmother's favorite song, who's painted on the back of the ukulele. I photo transferred her handwriting from letters she has written to me when I was younger, and created an audio to pair that uses clips of voicemails she has left and me singing Dahil Sayo while playing the ukulele. I will now play a short clip.
I love you from the bottom of my heart, okay? And have a nice holiday tomorrow. Bye, Grandma Tessie.
My work is integrative of my ancestral roots and family culture, sensorial elements of my past and present experiences, and finds power through the formal and figurative qualities of language. I call upon the viewer to see themselves within the figures, within the words, and the universal narrative of interconnectedness. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
Just want to invite Anna and Taro to just be in conversation now. We have about 10 minutes.
Should I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, you can do that.
Anna, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing your presentation. There were just so many heartwarming elements that bring up sensorial. I myself am from Mexico, as Susanna explained, and so you sharing some of your more personal and vulnerable moments that relate to your practice really touched home for me as well. I wrote down some notes. There were some really striking similarities between the spines that kept coming up in your figures to the spine of the guitar, and there were some parallels. I thought it was really, really interesting how you were mentioning how, as being a little bit of a sports jock myself, how interesting either color, form, or movement tends to come into our work. And some of the poses that I saw in the figures as well, in the drawings, very much mimicked, like the strokes of tennis players and the bending of the body in certain ways that it just referenced the athleticism. And so I really enjoyed when I saw the tennis balls brought up, as well as the terracotta. I was like, those are very strong, colorful references. One more thing that just before I forget that I wanted to mention was there's something I think I liked how you kind of like fucked with my brain a little bit in terms of the books when you showed the books and how they're made out of felt. And the tactility, you're not supposed to touch food, like it's like, don't touch food, don't, and this like teddy-ish toy type of felt material that is so much about warmth, and like you think about, you sleep next to something that's very tactile, you hold it, and bringing those elements into food, which we often think of, smell, we often think of like taste, but we don't think of the tactility of food. And so I liked how my brain was like wanting to touch it and wanting to pick it up and wanting to caress it, and knowing that I shouldn't be doing that. And so there's this kind of like push and pull where and making some of those really heavy casserole dishes feel really fuzzy and like the total opposite. So you kind of you give it some levity as opposed to like the richness of the spice or the sauce. So I'll stop there. But those are just some of my initial like provocations that got stirred up, pun intended.
That's great. Nick, thank you so much. And since you took my first year class, your work has been amazing. I've been amazed so much by your work. And then when I was looking through your presentation, I was thinking about what makes me feel so impressed. And I started thinking several things. And one is actually what Anna Teresa suggested, almost like a very interesting, I have never seen this kind of integration of music and sport, and music and the kind of physicality that you get. So, and also because of music, probably everything becomes kind of structural too, even though it's been integrated into the in the case of paintings on the surface of canvas, but also in the book, also it has the really nice structure there. So and your work always has this physicality, the sense of body and experience of our bodies, even including the dissonances of it. And also, the beauty, colors, how our body translate our experience into colors and shapes. So all those are kind of like packed into your work, and then which is really amazing. And I've been really impressed by your work so much in that sense. I have one question, which you didn't actually talk about. Sometimes you use the mural, kind of black and white wall drawing that you did for the exhibition space also, which seems to have a little bit different style, more kind of have more symbolism, or probably because of the line drawings, but more really transformed even further than your paintings. We see still the body and also lines, but also those become almost a combination of symbols. How do you see that wall mural pieces, and how you see that being part of your work? Is it integrating the whole thing? Is that why, or how do you see that aspect of your work?
Yeah, it was actually something I started doing last year, just kind of imagining it as like a bigger sketchbook. But I definitely curated the one that I did at SOMARTS, and from the one I did in my studio, kind of wanting to bring that practice, kind of bring my studio to the gallery. But the drawings themselves, I take inspiration from actually Filipino traditional tattoos and the symbols from there, and incorporate them into the line art.
Okay.
And I kind of see it as expanding the space and kind of like world building, in a sense, creating this this world for the figures to live in a way.
So the experience of body is still there, actually, because it's taken from tattoo, which is the body experience, right? Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, there was something I also was interested in hearing a little bit more about the mural, because there's a sensibility that I find a little bit more somewhat more relaxed and more like free within that scale. And I'm thinking that's probably having to do with something coming back to the athleticism, like having larger, broader strokes. One of the things that I tend to notice with students is when there's a more of a constrained size, and like the body's feeling a little bit more constrained themselves. And once you free them from that rectangular shape, and once you're able to use your entire body and the gestural form of mark making, something becomes more free. And so I really was gravitating a lot to that image of you sitting in the corner, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And just observing how much the drawings and the figures themselves change according to the different scale.
And so in that sense, like, how do you experience, like, of course, we can clearly see the connection of those mural works between with those sketchbook drawings, which are amazing. Those are really great. But also thinking about the size changes, do you see, and also if you change the size and it becomes huge, the experience of making becomes more physical, more kind of like a representation, not representation of, but yeah, representation of the movement of your body, right? As Teresa suggested. So how do you think, like, that's it? Did it change the way you make work? Because I remember you were using the projector somehow to enlarge the work, but also have you thought about kind of like a, using the wall as just simply a, huge version of a sketchbook?
Yeah, so the version in my studio was the free-handed version. And then the one at SOMARTS was a projected, more just, structured recreation of it. But definitely like, more physical, using my body. There's more, I guess, more breath to it. And whereas like when I displayed the canvases on top of the painted wall, it's kind of like the wall is like air and life around, and these are people and moments in time throughout the space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
One thing that I tend to like observing patterns within people's work, and one of the things that I forgot to mention is that both the spine and the guitar, the spine and the humans, but also the spine and the book, they tend to have a similar mark making. So I would kind of like beckon you to use, and they're all a little bit reminiscent of musical, also the where the staff goes, like in the lines and the musical notations go. So really, because the spine and the guitar, you kind of like flip it. You have these kind of repeating motifs that I think you can kind of like weave in and out and interconnect. So I would really encourage you to like bring those in a little bit more decisively into the books as well, because they feel the books themselves feel very lyrical, and the way in which you handle the edge, like I said again, that has that similar pattern of like thinking of like integrating a little bit more of that musicality, whether it's through the notes, through the either sound or something. But I feel like I love the weaving in and out of sports, music, and food, which I think you're getting at something really interesting. All things that feed our soul, really.
Oh, it's great.
Nick, I had a question for you. So I really thought it was interesting that you led with this kapwa, right? Which is this cultural value. It's like this also has almost like a kind of ethical kind of quality to it in terms of how people are in relationship, and so I thought about, and it really felt like that was an interesting way to lead a conversation. And also it made me see how that work sort of it kind of moves through all your projects, and how the tool, these like the book and the guitar become these sort of performative tools that bring people together, right? And so I just started thinking about, I wonder if Nick could imagine taking this work into a context, different contexts, out into the world, or if you only see yourself as a studio artist at this point.
I guess at this point, that brings questions of post-graduation, what I plan to do. But I do want to do more community-based work, I think, going forward, and working with different kinds of communities. Because right now, I'm taking more from my personal experience, my family, my chosen family. But I think expanding and meeting new people is something I'm excited to do, and use that as inspiration for work.
That's great. Bay Area has a huge Filipino community, so there's many places that you can actually work in. So yeah, I can connect you to them. Wonderful.
I'm like the worst time recorder ever, but we have we do have a few minutes left. If there's any last comment, or Nick, if you had a question for us before we finish up.
I guess, Ana Teresa, if you have any guidance for her post-graduation, maybe, advice for doing like residencies, and because I would love to travel and have be able to have art as my career.
I think that that Tara was bringing up the fact that there is a huge Filipino community in the Bay Area, and they're incredibly active, and they themselves like have formed a community, which I was kind of like an honorary, like I was like, there was a running joke of like I was part Asian for a while because I was hanging out with them quite a bit. So and because they're just, I think that was kind of like what kept me going, to be really honest, that playfulness, that joy, finding people. Like I know that intersection for the arts was someone that like took me under their wing, which doesn't really exist now, but like Southern Exposure still exists. And you know, it's like, Taro, help me out here, but I think that really looking into after school programs that require young artists to teach them. There's a bunch of them still out and about. One is called Out of Sight, that I taught for a while, that they require, like, you know, undergrads fresh out of school, that they want those individuals to come out and teach in areas that don't really have the arts available. So I would really just scour some of these arts organizations and go into, there's all these platforms as well, virtual platforms for residencies abroad that are available online, and just like apply. Just keep applying. You'll get denied a ton. We all do.
Right.
But I think it's just, I know that, I mean, even CCA had like youth arts teaching at one point. I don't know if that exists anymore, Suzanne.
God, I don't know. I don't think so. But Southern Exposure, Nick, where we went earlier, that's a good place for that too. So.
Yeah, they are always doing teaching, like summer teaching programs and stuff like that. So if you can get your foot in the door or even offer to intern for them, I think that, you know, no one's not having, or even choose a gallery, like find a gallery that you really like. Catherine Clark told me, she's like, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how few people actually like come to the gallery asking to help and see how they can assist us, because we're always needing interns. And they love taking in students, art students that are willing to, you know, get their hands dirty and be part of that community.
I think there are so many things you can do, but I think the most important thing is as everybody says, actually, it's just be present, just be close to what the people who are doing something exciting, right? And the organization, there are many organizations who focus on immigrants and also the Asians, especially the Kearney Street workshop is definitely one of the places in San Francisco. And there are many organizations started happening in Oakland who focus on immigrants and refugees too. So just be present and then just go there and then just talk with them. And then definitely, you know, getting any opportunity to be with them is a really wonderful idea. And also the community is not something that you kind of need to look for. Actually, that's something you can create too. So you can start your community. And that's something I really want, you know, many people who are graduating to do. Actually, you are the ones who needs to create a community which we all other people can participate in. So so you're not only the beneficiary, you need to be the initiative of our movement. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Also, there's not a lot of opportunities to meet MFA students for undergrads and grads to meet, but there's currently Hannah Faye Oliver, who is a Filipina performance and visual artist who's a graduate student. I'll do an introduction to you because I think you'll have a lot in common. And there's lots of ways that undergrads and grads can also, you know, co-create and generate things together. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. That was fantastic. We're going to move on to Jennyfer. Jennyfer, when you're ready.
Yeah. All right. Let me just pull it up here. All right, so my name is Jennyfer Medina. I'm an individualized major minoring in writing, and I'm excited to share my journey with all of you. So I'm gonna open up with this poem here. It's by Camille, which is an El Salvadorian revolutionary poet. He says, como tú, love, life, and the sweet smell of things. The sky blue landscapes of January days, and my blood boils up, and I laugh through eyes that have known the buds of tears. I believe the world is beautiful, and that poetry, like bread, is for everyone, and that my veins don't end in me, but in the unanimous blood of those who struggle for life, love, little things, landscape, and bread, the poetry of everyone. And so, like, I am from America. I'm first generation here, and a lot of my work sort of circles around identity, because I have this sort of rift between my own culture here and my family's culture in El Salvador. And so my parents immigrated here, and yeah, so like there's a sort of shift there. And so I am an observer, an explorer, a thinker. I am a writer, a cartoonist, a storyteller, a journalist. And how much does identity truly impact lived experience? After surviving one of the most controversial presidents in American history amidst one of the worst pandemics in world history, I was determined to find an answer to this question for myself. I am a New York-raised, first-generation American, El Salvadorian, Gen Z, immunocompromised, early non-binary artist living in post-9/11, post-Columbine, COVID-19 pandemic era America. Growing up in a small, mostly white community, I became all too familiar with the feeling of being othered, adapting to community, yet never genuinely belonging. So I chose to adopt this culture of alienation and would subconsciously search for the other everywhere I went. I am a mixed media artist with a strong focus in the construction and deconstruction of identity. I draw illustrations, short form comics, write fiction, create characters, and make objects with the ultimate goal of telling stories. I always keenly fascinated by the movement of storytelling. My research includes field recordings, photos, videos, conversation, oral stories, and urban legend. Through the process of layering automatic writing and sketches into new cohesive storylines, which speak to my lived experience, I document the paths I take to find myself. So my influences are Zora Neale Hurston, who is a author, anthropologist, and filmmaker, and she sort of encompasses all that I want to do with my work, where just connecting back to roots and finding storylines that have been sort of neglected or like unheard. And my second influence is Fernando Yort, who studied abroad in France and Belgium, and he studied philosophy and theology, and he came back with this academic knowledge, and he taught his community in El Salvador to thrive and create more accessible art, and actually affected the economies there in El Salvador. So I made a lot of comics in 2020 throughout pandemic. I was very much like digitally based artist. And I started creating these short form comics talking about my lived experience, just to sort of delve into a new track of what is it called? Memorial, or yeah, just to record my experience, and sort of filtering through my my sort of identity and working through it as a sort of therapeutic process that I would share with others. And this is a sort of series that I wanted to work on with digital illustration called Screensavers, and it was basically a commentary on how a lot of my peers were experiencing the pandemic through screens, and how we communicate with each other and the ways that we communicate with each other was changing. So moving on to my thesis work, I created a little excerpt. The theme of my room was living room, and it's a room to live. The world shifted as we quickly rushed to adapt to a new environment, which had been completely saturated by an unnecessarily drawn out pandemic, questionable political leadership, and near constant protests. The amount of unprecedented events we've collectively experienced in the past few years is not small, and the history continues to unfold as we attempt to push our way forward into a better tomorrow. Forced indoors, I grew accustomed to the long periods of silence and near constant anxiety. Screen time reached unimaginable levels as I pushed away the stressful hellscape of my life had become, submerged in the frequent and unrelenting wave of Zoom meetings, violent and concerning media coverage, as well as a steady flow of cute animal videos. Day after day, the days passed by slowly as if clocks themselves grew weary of ticking, yet the sands of time seemed to disappear altogether at once. I think back on this period as if they never existed. Emotionally burnt out and weary of heated conversations, eventually my voice grew silent. I noticed I am not alone when I say that the overwhelm of the last few years has been incredibly heavy and hard to deal with. This room is dedicated to the frequent changes we experience in seemingly short moments of time. It is dedicated to the words held in and conversations unsaid and the topics avoided. This room is an intervention, but this is unfinished, and it is my hope that you have the courage to help me see it completed. And so I have this one piece, which has an interactive light element in the inside. I created a room for myself with elements of my quinceañera tool and sort of felt and other objects to represent myself, sort of looking back inward. And this room is called All Paths Lead to Me. And this is my second piece of my thesis called Portrait of an American Dream. And it features the imagery that has been heavily influenced by Fernando Yort's style. And it is my take on the American dream. My flowers symbolize sort of this paranoia and push forward, and birds symbolize creation. And the house in the background represents my home. And so this is sort of my portrait of my American dream. And this is an interactive piece that I created in my exhibition, where I asked others to interact with a phone booth that I created out of wood and a toy phone. And I allowed people to write a secret on the phone booth that others could interact with, and something that they've held inside during the pandemic. And this is just a video of like people interacting and writing their messages on my phone booth. I also have a image inside, sort of depicting natural and the sort of hidden face within. My next piece was also made of felt. I grew drawn to felt after pandemic because I really wanted to feel my work. I really want to feel the process, and I wanted others to be able to interact and feel it as well. So this is another piece called Healing, using similar imagery and depicting sort of like beginning with the paranoia and then the creation, and the last image on the bottom like sort of represents treating your inner self as a child and nurturing it. This is another piece with objects that I've made in previous class, and it's called Innocence and Ignorance. It is a depiction of the hear no evil, see no evil, say no evil. And I feel like it's a message of a two-sided coin, where on one hand, while you do all of these things, you remain ignorant. And then on the other side, it depicts innocence. These following images will be sort of what I will be building on. I don't feel that these are finished products, but I'm sharing them with you all today because I feel that this is the direction that I'm heading towards. And so these are the imagery that is using the visual language that I sort of created in order to eliminate binary structures. And so I have this one titled Cycles, and this is about the cycles of violence where there is the perpetrator, and then there is the one being the victim, and then the reporter and the observer, and sort of this cycle that I've observed over pandemic. And this is called Fight, Flight, Freeze, and it uses a children's game in order to depict the sort of environment that I grew up sort of in post-Columbine. And this is Cycles Part 2, which delves more into like the political aspect of the cycle and adds another layer. And this one is called Domesticated Humans. And so all of these images I am building upon to create a larger story of things that I observe in the world. And yeah, so thank you so much. I wanted to thank my parents for always pushing me. Even in high school, when I didn't believe in myself, and even now, the mentors I've found in CCA, and all of the amazing friends that have just supported me so much through pandemic and up till this day. Yeah, so I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So great. And Anna, feel free to jump in.
Thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your story and your journey. I do not know how to use the clap hands, so I'm just like, I'm just doing it because I'm not tech savvy. And it's so interesting that the artist that you that does the stacking, what is his name?
Stacking.
The the Salvadorian artist that you
Fernando Yort.
Lord?
Yort.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually I had a towel based on an image that I grew up washing my hands on, and I saw the work and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know, but there's something really fascinating to me from, I think that some of the composition elements that you're taking, especially in your illustrations, which is the stacking element that comes from like post-Byzantine era that have been reappropriated throughout different historical periods, which is like the way of storytelling. All the story gets told within one frame, and you kind of stack the characters and the players and the actions. I think that you're doing it in a really interesting way, in which the graphics are not too, you're not being anchored by the folkloric element or the like modernist element, but it's a really interesting hybrid of both. And also the use of the digital reappropriation. I mean, I was like pretty blown away when I saw the recycle graphic, where it just kind of it hit me pretty hard. And I really enjoyed the elements you were using, like the condensation of symbols into that frame, I think plays into the stacking, but in a more what am I trying to say? Yeah, you're able to condense it with less elements. And I think that, which is editing ultimately. So you're editing your compositions in a really smart and a really like fine-tuned way, and using color, I think, in a really interesting subversive way as well, which has hints of more of your folkloric background and, you know, hints of like cartoonish, the bird element, the fields, but then you kind of bring the darkness in this light way, which I think it's really successful. I'm still chewing on some other thoughts, so I'll let Taro go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. This is amazing, and also I was also so impressed by the final series that you showed, that the illustration series, so much. And probably because I saw the other works that, you know, before that, and that's the kind of road that you came through to get to this current point. This current series is really great. Like, you know, it's such a kind of like very sarcastic satire in the style of very illustrative, almost like a childlike drawing. You took the style from Fernando Yort, and which is, yeah, great style, and almost like a Lego like colors, and but still it strikes us so much. So what's interesting is your way of criticizing society is really almost like many times, I don't know if it's conscious decision or not, but you take like a three figures always, like this kind of three things going on, and then so instead of like a two things, so it's not really kind of like you play with the dichotomy, like more like you try to show the complex aspect of social problems in a very in a style that's very easy to understand or easy to accept. But if you think about it, it's really, you know, pointing the core of the problem. So I think that's what I really like about the current project. So I really want you to just, just keep going with it. I'm not sure how you're going to, what you're thinking about, how in terms of how you want to publicize. I don't know if it's going to be with the magazines or the more like it's going to be part of your, more like a galleries context. I don't believe the gallery context does it. Or more like I can really see that more printed on the media that's distributed in the mass populations, or even like the street like posters or things like that. Yeah. So it has amazing style, and yeah. But also I have a question that it's not quite related to the final series. Probably it is related, but because you created for your senior exhibitions that kind of many things that's based on the boxes which represent your home or your living room, basically, and which of course is a response to what the trouble we had during the pandemic. So I really want to learn from you, how do you see the cultural impact of the pandemics that we've been suffering from, and then what kind of scar that we have, and also what did we get out of this? And I don't know, it seems you started kind of getting it by seeing this final series, but it seems like you got something out of it. And so I want to learn something from you. So how do you think about it?
Yeah. So can you hear me? I
Yeah.
think my connection is somewhat unstable. All right. So I have had so many conversations over the past 2 years about this pandemic, which is kind of why I've been preparing for this thesis. And essentially for me, the scars that I feel like we have or that we will be noticing in the future will be our sort of disconnect with communication and our new found like just connectivity issues with one another on an emotional basis, on a feeling basis. I think a lot of us were very overwhelmed during pandemic because we had just so many things to look at and sort of digest that it sort of clogged our emotional system. And so we are going to have to heal from that from now on. But I feel that pandemic has shown us that introspectively we have so many things that we can work on and that we can get better at. And we have gotten to maybe this point where we feel at rock bottom, or like we feel sort of this low, that we know how to reach higher heights now. We know the things that we need to work on, and that is potential, and that is something that we can spur a conversation about in the future.
That's great. Still, yeah, even though we have been alienated situation, so we still have the work to do, and then that actually kind of let us survive through it. So yeah, okay, thank you so much.
I think one of the things that I is coming back up to me that I just wrote down, it's this fascination of the frame within a frame within a frame that you have, and you saying that you felt like the other, and so this reframing within a frame within a composition, which reminds me a little bit of Lynn Hirschman's work of having the television be the screens being the face, or the bodies, or the camera being the face. And so playing with who's viewing what. Is it the television screen viewing the world, which is us, which is, again, a little bit of, for me, a representation of light and dark, the light that comes out of the screen, or the light that the metaphysical light that comes out of us. So it made me think a little bit of I believe their names is the Hernandez brothers, who wrote Las Locas. It's a great 80s comics. They're artists that wrote Las Locas. And it's very punk. It's very dark and light. And there's an element of that. I feel like it was a little bit of your work's a little bit of a fusion of, it has a punk element, but it's a little bit lighter. It's not so dark. But yeah, and then the cigarette legs, I think. The cigarette legs, I think, were they cigarette legs or were they not cigarette legs? On one of the graphics, which I found that were super terrific.
I didn't view them as cigarette legs, but I feel like that's
sorry.
No, like, don't apologize. It's a really cool interpretation. And what I was trying to play around with my figures was actually eliminating binaries, in which case, just eliminating male, female, white, black, dark, like any of these things that we are used to. I was trying to eliminate all of them and just focus on the graphic. And I created this body that is very organic, that is very like it sort of changes with the frame that you put it into. And so that's why the legs end that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like the idea of reframing, and then definitely you try to reframe. Sometimes use the actual frames, but sometimes like using conceptual frames and then deconstruct, as you said, our identity, or the identity that society that imposes upon us. And so I think that's really great. Yeah, thank you.
So I was so happy to see more of your writing in this presentation, and that I love that you took the time to read to us and to give this kind of weight to your language. And I really like your writing, and your writing really reminded me of your last work. Those last illustrations that have a kind of punch to them, and they have a kind of message or a kind of way that you're talking to the public. So it made me think about artists as public intellectuals, and even the way you addressed Taro's question, I really just feeling your, how much you have to contribute to art and to society and to wherever this is taking you, Jennyfer. Really excited for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm clapping because I don't know how to use the clap.
Yeah, it's more fun to do it in person. Okay, so thank you, Jen. And now we are going to turn to Jamiani. You can share your screen.
Cool. Hello. Okay, let's see. Boom. Okay, put this where it's comfortable. Okay. Hi, you guys. Hi, my name is Jamiani Gray. I am going to be showing you my work. I am a community artist. Well, I wanted to start off to be a community artist, but I would switch to individualized, and I also minor in ecology. And this symbol that you see right here is basically a replication of being centered, and then it's all about binaurals and like the 7 chakras, because that's also what that's also how I represent myself. So right here, I will be basically sharing a poem with you guys that I wrote. And there's like, the top of the screen is just like hovering over it. So I'm just going to read the second line instead, because I can't read the top. I recall my memory of niggas in Philly, red whip cotton and white colonial envy mixed with chakra enlightenment, golden shells of traumatic crowns on the ground, Philadelphia painting raindrops of clapback sounds on my wet paintbrush, Holy oil anoints my head, so with oil I anoint these canvas sheets, exposing the tears of my ancestor left on thick white thread, black on white embracing green, black, and red. Ancestral genocide flames my community veins, witnessing childhood killings due to colonial bloodshed. It is spilling a smear on my race. The United States forced Black hands to slaughter the Black man. Black on Black crime, post-traumatic slave time in my bloodline. We were promised land, a precious gold mine, and we were sold lies in the midst of a smoky dream. My art interrupts the American dream. I make do with the few peaceful experiences I've been fed. I declare my future, exposing the freedoms of my people, eyes naked. I pour out my African colors to the universe to be shared and not kept sacred, claiming the space that want to be naked. So that is my poem, and which also reflects my art. And right here, I want to share some of my past and present, basically inspirations. A lot of my inspirations definitely come from my family. A lot of the things that I've experienced in the Black community, and also growing up with my family, my brother, and like just really having this understanding of like post-traumatic slave syndrome and the things that I've dealt with growing up. Sorry, I'm in Emeryville, so you'll hear a train in the background. But yeah, so during that time of me growing up, I've always basically done my art due to the things that I was influenced by, which was like my family, and then like this brand called iNerd, which stands for Intelligence Never Ever Really Die. So that always kind of stuck with me. And I've never went to art class, and I never had art inside my school because the government only paid like 3% towards education. So all of my influences definitely came from what I experienced. And as well as me having teachers, I've never ever heard of any type of Black artists inside my school. So that's definitely something that kind of triggered me growing up. And as I went into CCA, I learned more about Black artists, and I was like, whoa, there's a lot coming from my culture. And I was very, very surprised about that. My influences is Lauryn Hill, Absol, Tyler the Creator, and KRS-One. And these are all musical artists, simply because I never really like dug deep into artists who actually paint. A lot of the times, these are the people that I listen to whenever I do my art. You have hip hop, you have a revolutionary hip hop, conscious hip hop, and then you have like emotionalism hip hop, and then you have like this big conscious community that I always listen to whenever I'm doing my work. This first painting that I really wanted to share with you guys is a painting that was also influenced by what I witnessed inside my own community, far as females inside my community not being heard. Constantly Black females were going missing 24/7, and nobody was ever saying anything. So it was just focusing on how much Black females are not being heard, especially within America, which is why I got the American hands wrapped around the female's throats. But then you got that nice, gentle hand of like the ancestors, or just of the Black community, or the elders that could be like, you know, lift your head up, keep your head up high, and just constantly keep fighting within my community. And this was definitely inspired by my grandma as well, because she wanted me to do oil painting and she wanted me to give it a try. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. It's a risk, but I'll do it. So this is also my first time doing oil painting, and I think it came out really well. And then this is a second painting that I did of oil. This was definitely influenced by, I think like 2 blocks away from me, it was a man named, I think Walter Wallace, who actually got shot in the hands of the police and murdered. And I felt that pain, being as though it was like, it wasn't even that far away from where I live. And at this moment, this was during the time of the pandemic. And I kind of wanted to visualize like what would a Black man say, like his last words, like how would that look like? Just losing that life force, losing that breath of air. And I really wanted to paint a symbolism of like a tree, also like losing life, but also gaining life as well. And as a Black man is losing life, there's also life being given inside this world. And there's a lot of energy that's also being put in the Black community when it comes down to protesting. So that's why you have like the pieces up on top of the head, the silhouettes of protesting. And then inside his face is just so much rage and so much anger. So those are like the things that I wanted to put inside that piece. This piece right here is just basically like something that I wanted to test trial. I kind of got tired of the limitations of art within itself. Like the different principles and the elements, I had no problem like constantly doing that. But at the same time, I felt really stuck as an artist, trying to constantly figure out concepts after concepts and like just being a making art machine. So this is where I decided to kind of like let go and be like, you know what, I'm gonna do art and I'm gonna do it my way, and I'm gonna just do it with my fingers, even though oil is not supposed to be on the fingers. I'm gonna just do it how I want to do it. So I decided to draw this man that just came to mind. And then I decided to like take my fingers and kind of like scratch the paint on there, in a very interesting way where it kind of looks like a Native American like feathers. And that's just like how it came out, just smearing those colors, and actually like getting different types of like pigments within that specific painting. So this is like a work that I had in progress, that basically was reflecting my education growing up in America as a Black child, the things that I constantly was seeing, like the multiple signs of people holding the American flag proudly, but what that also meant for me within my own community. As a child, I was constantly seeing my people being locked up, but at the same time, these were also the chains that we put around our neck to also glorify. So that is the reasoning for the gold around the chains between the eyes, and then just the gold fingernails just to complement that gold change within the eyes as well. And then as I began finishing this piece, I actually decided to take out what was above, simply because I felt like it was too much going on within this piece. So I decided to just kind of minimalize it, because I think that this final product on its own, it already speaks so much value. So I felt like it wasn't no more that I needed to actually like put within my artwork. I love the weeping willow tree. That's something I definitely always like to incorporate in the way that I do the tree. It's kind of like hug tight. So this is kind of like a signature that I put into all of my pieces. If you ever see a tree inside of my paintings, is going to be painted just like that. So that's kind of like a little there, so that way people can know like, oh, that's Jamiani's work, just a little bit. But yeah, like the weeping willow tree is definitely a representation of those specific trees that kind of speak to my ancestral lineage, especially when it comes down to slavery. There's a lot of, when you look back at just like slavery within itself, a lot of my people were hung on weeping willow trees. And I just thought that it was ironic that it's also called a weeping willow, which is the reasoning that I wanted to add this tree of knowledge, or the tree of a weeping willow, inside of this this painting right here. And at the exhibition, which was my first exhibition, this is exactly like what was the final piece of it. I had a lady who came through and she told me that she felt like the hand on the baby cheeks were possibly the ancestors holding the baby's face, which I thought was like an interesting, like just representation of my piece, because I never looked at it like that. So I have this piece specifically untitled, because I felt like when I did allow people to see my work, they was able to interpret it exactly how it was supposed to be interpreted. And I just wanted to see, as an artist, whether the message that I was relaying inside my work was clear. And it was. So that's basically it. And thank you. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I think, do I stop sharing my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that great talk. Really appreciate that. We can just jump right in. We're going to go on a little bit later than projected. Sorry, everyone.
Can I start? It's really amazing. Like when I saw the this Breathe Black Man, you said that that's the of the portrait of the person who was killed by police, correct? Right? And this final breath became a tree, and without any leaves, and it's such a kind of like a really painful moment. And also use the weeping willow, which is, you know, one of my actually favorite trees. It's such a beautiful, but it has also a very historical meaning too. So and always I think I think of the song Willow Weeps for me too. So it's really amazing. That's how you use this idea of tree, or kind of connected to the voice that we sometimes cannot express. So, and also kind of representing ourselves maybe, or the kind of like also that's the connector of us with the history that we have too. Yeah, I was amazed. If you can talk a little bit more about, you know, what tree means for you. I think you talked about pretty well about this, you know, willow, weeping willow, but if there is any other element, or if there is any kind of bigger context or historical context that you mentioned also, yeah, I want to know more about it. How do you think?
Well, I guess, I don't know, like, just, well, weeping willow for me is just, yeah, of course, it's like one of my favorite trees. Growing up, I was always like meditating under a tree or planting a tree, like planting seeds. It's just that ideology of giving life constantly, and never stop giving life. And I think it's really sad when life stops, especially for any human being who didn't deserve for their heart to stop beating. So that's just something that kind of resonated with me, especially when it comes down to, I guess you could say it's very like spiritual in a way, because I am a very spiritual person, but I believe that trees breathe, and I breathe as well, and I breathe with trees. And then it's like, we all as human beings, like when we breathe, we also give like a certain type of energy to trees as well. And that's the reason why we are alive. So it kind of goes hand in hand, especially when it comes down to like life within it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I was struck by the imagery of I thought I wasn't sure if it was roots or a tree coming out of his mouth. And before you actually spoke about the piece, I recalled there was an excerpt within Beloved, within Toni Morrison's Beloved, where the lover is talking about the man's back after having been whipped, looking like a tree. And so the violence on the figure resonating like a tree. And so it kind of struck me how you were saying that this last individual's breath words were that of a tree. And so there was this odd, strange parallel of two different distinct stories, but kind of erupting the same symbol of that tree as a sign of insistence, hope, continuation, with whether they're being harmed or killed, but it's that sign of like needing to keep going forth through this symbol of nature, which I thought was pretty powerful. And also I think that there's that, as like Taro said, there's a really interesting connection of like how you're placing this natural element in relationship to the body, where it's whether it's coming out of the mouth or coming out of above the head. I would really I would urge you to think about, like, fingers look like tree limbs, our limbs within ourselves also look tree-like. And so really pushing probably that symbol and those elements to merge together, because I think that they're very powerful. If you're even if you're using your fingers as you were trying to create that feather-like element around the face, whether it's like coming out of the body within itself to represent another type of natural symbolism around the body.
I'm thinking several different things, but the one of the things you said before you showed the one you painted with your fingers, you said you started feeling the limitation of art. And by seeing that painting, I think what you were talking about was also the limitation of the way we make art, rather than the limitation of art itself, I think. But but also that kind of like a comment like resonates with me, like after that also, and it started getting connected with the, okay, so how do you think about, what is the context or environment where you want to show your work, and who is the audience, and then what is the community that you're thinking about that you want to create around it? Yeah, so because of the limitation of art, I think that you try to make your art even more connective and powerful, and I believe conceptually, and also in terms of community, in terms of the community as well. So how you think about the kind of using of art is not really the right term, but the how you want to have your art function in your society.
I think I would love to have my art function in the atmosphere of protests, like banners, especially like different conferences, like town hall meetings, stuff like that, like newspapers, but not on like newspapers as in like, oh, this is Jamiani's work, like newspaper. It will be more so like my art representing things that have to do with, I don't want to make my art political, but definitely like in a sense of reparations for my community. That's just like how I look at it. But then it's also, I want it to be like I said, like interrupting the American dream. Like, so for me, it's like for all of those people who like really worship the American flag, I'm pretty much, obviously for my own cultural background, I'm very much so against the American flag. So I want to have this practice and this tradition of like interrupting this false ideology that's being sold to everyone, especially when it comes down to other people coming to America, and they especially as like Black and brown communities, they think that they're going to be coming to America and it's going to be really sweet for them and they get to do whatever they want to do and live free. But this land is not the land of the free and living. So that's definitely something that I want my art to speak for.
Thank you so much, Jamiani. We're going to need to move on, but really appreciate this conversation and to see your work. Yeah.
The image of that baby is so strong, but it sticks to my ear, I mean eyes.
So we're going to move on to Camille, and Anna has a needs to move on pretty quickly. I'm sorry, we're going over. So I'm not sure. Are you an hour behind or behind us, Anna?
In front of you.
In front. Okay, so you have to leave right now?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Why don't we begin with Camille and then stay as long as you can. And if you want to drop any comments in the chat before, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Gomez, and I'm really happy that we could come together today and share our work. Obviously, this is my time to share my work, so let's start with a family photo. From left to right, we have my father, older sister, me, and my mom at the pier. This particular pier is in San Francisco, California, where I currently live and make art. This picture is a bit deceptive because as a child, I was never outside that often, though many of my childhood pictures were taken outside. My parents and my sisters can attest that I was a very sickly, overprotected child, and it has shaped me to become a house cat more than anything. It resulted in me consuming a lot of television. If it wasn't cable, it was VHS tapes. My sister and I rewatched movies on VHS so much that the dialogue, which we couldn't comprehend at the time, was melodic to us, and we would reenact and recreate the tones that we heard. And my sister would even relate to me that she would imagine the movies as she was falling asleep. That's how much we watched VHS tapes. When we were bored of that, we'd play the tape in reverse and drive our grandparents crazy. At one point, we were familiar with the dust particles that would appear at specific times in the movie. Needless to say, we were far from the intended viewing experience, and I never really knew how that could be expanded on or even applied to art until I came across the likes of Nam June Paik and Pippilotti Rist. And what would an introduction to video art be without the father of video art itself, Nam June Paik? Of course, being a child of the internet, I'm no stranger to video art, but I hadn't really entertained its infancy or really how radical it was during Paik's time, especially after World War II, when it was just starting to influence minds and the culture, and television was just entering everybody's conscience. So Paik adapted as the technology did, messed with television as well as single video channels. And he already envisioned how they would be utilized outside of how it was intended, and pushed its means of expression, integrating performance, sculpture, stacking TVs and remixing the content on them, even collaborating with musicians and creating the first video synthesizer. So in regards to TV Buddha, I found it very compelling because of the two cultural implications interacting with each other, especially since they're so dissonant in meaning and time. And despite it being very still, Paik managed to bridge the gap between the two, making the sculpture of the Buddha activated even more so than it already is as a religious figure. The live feed aspect is very stimulating because our minds acknowledge the connection a viewer has with interacting with video, and we are made more aware of the time that is passing since it is a live feed. And we are able somehow to associate watching video with meditation and Zen. And it's only because these two figures are put in this specific situation that we are able to appreciate their unique properties. And we have Pippilotti Rist. And here's a quote by Rist. She compares her video installations to women's handbags, funny enough. She says, because there is room in them for everything: painting, technology, language, music, lousy flowing pictures, poetry, commotion, premonitions of death, sex, and friendliness, which does not necessarily need to be depicted in commercial cinema or in a narrative standpoint. Video can be all-encompassing depending on how you place them and your subjective experience with them. And this is one of Pippilotti Rist's works, Selfless in a Bath of Lava. in which it's installed inside the floorboards of her exhibition. You wouldn't know it at first, but it does confront her experiences with religion. As you can see, she's in the floor and she reaches up both of her hands, and it keeps looping her yelling, "I'm a worm and you are a flower," in several languages, continuing on to say, "You would have done everything better, help me, excuse me," in which she confronts another aspect of video, in that the screen grants you separation and teeters between confrontation and compliance, as she is placed as a person and you are kind of placed in the position of God, and she's in the floorboards and you're looking down at her, but you're in no way able to help her in any means because of this separation, which I found interesting. And it informed my work, and this is the first of my work, Letting In. It's made of 2 sets of blinds where the slats are replaced with found footage film, the 35 millimeter found footage film. And accompanying the blinds are 2 slide projectors directed towards them. And the found footage consists of a woman undressing and dressing herself. And this was actually a piece in class that I made in response to a failed project. In that failed project, there was some unintended light refracting from the sprocket holes. And so I decided to utilize that and make them into a light work using window blinds. As a child myself, I did play with like window blinds a lot because I did love the effect that it had in my room and sort of seeing the shift happening. And I invited my classmates to interact and operate the blinds. I was sort of hesitant at first, but seeing them just changing ever so slightly, there's like an audible gasp in the room and everybody's sort of crowded to see the lights show up in person and to directly influence the lights on the wall, if you can see over here. And funny enough, none of them minded the provocative images of the woman. They were all in a sort of childlike wonder. So you could say that it was a sort of social experiment in that regard. And so the childlike wonder like took over that provocative, attention-seeking visual images that the film tried to evoke and originally was supposed to make people like ogle over. Yeah, Letting In is one of the many pieces I deem cinematic without having anything to do with commercial cinema. I had integrated my own sets of childlike play, and even without immediate interaction, the refracted light pulsed and allowed people to watch in slow silence. And that ties into the mundane actions, as opening a window blind not only creates shift in light, but a shift in environment. And this could also be said about other daily happenings, such as drinking your first cup of coffee in the morning or your first step outside, which I think says a lot, especially during this time. So Xerox. Xerox came at a very weird time where everything seemed to intersect. There is both this pursuit to present reality differently and the attempt to represent reality through this medium. There are both tutorials on how to make footage look like it was shot from a Super 8 and VHS, but there was also trouble I had documenting my work and wanting to make it as accurate as possible. But through this documenting, there was simply no way I can make it look as the original. So Xerox was my first experiment using the specific process of taking handheld footage of my laptop screen, importing the footage back into my laptop, and then repeating the process of recording and importing, resulting in degraded visuals. In this case, Xerox, I was still familiarizing myself with this process, and it just became so yellow. And it was until later that I realized it's because I had a single lamp on, which was exacerbated like with every reproduction. So it was interesting to know that my laptop had so much agency with the visuals, even though I thought I had a lot of control. So from then on, I had to do it in a completely dark room. And retelling is an alternate version of Xerox in which viewers can see each step of the process from start to finish. And you can see how they interact with each other and how much the visuals decompose and degrades. And it's reformatted so you can see the fluid movement, and then you can see the harsh, brash, violent rippings of the compression and sort of this language that video has that we have no control over. And This is aquarium commercial. The video itself is unlike retelling in that it's very slow and contemplative. It's actually a 40-minute video, and it's amazing to see how much of unlike retelling, instead of being obstructed by a mesh screen or like mesh fabric, this is purely derives from a blank screen. And so it's amazing to see how something so cold and still as a blank screen could transform into something so contemplative and intimate. And I think it's very telling of how much depth and extremities and the spectrum screens have and their abilities to represent what we project on them. From retelling, there's a very violent sentiment to it, but here it speaks to our connection and the means of connection we use throughout this device. And something that we speak through has its own innate language. And so aquarium footage, the video that you just saw before, is on top, and thought process on the bottom, and they both assist each other in their transformation and reaffirming that they are both changing. It's kind of hard to see. One monitor alone, it seems like it's a still frame, but having them both as a dual screen monitor piece, they just have this communication with each other that I don't think that it could have had alone. And if you've noticed, aquarium footage is 40 minutes long, while thought process is 13. So at any given time of the day, you are essentially viewing a different combination. And it was very interesting to see the documentations from faculty, friends, and family, just to have them contribute to this reproduction process by giving me videos of the monitors. And so I intend to expand on this by sort of situating myself in virtual spaces, especially within streaming services. And there is a big community of creators who are trying to bypass copyright laws. And I kind of want to make my own menacing little bootlegs and post them online, and sort of, yeah, just being a menace in that regards, but also having these videos live and breathe in person. So it could act as their own twins that have chosen different life paths. And so they could present themselves differently, but in the same fashion. So thank you everybody for showing up and having to hear what I have to say. That has been my BFA thesis work, and I'm excited to cultivate a group where we could watch these videos all together in person and virtually.
Thank you so much, Camille. It's really stunning work, and look forward to the conversation. I'm so sorry I didn't know Anna had to leave so quickly, but we're so fortunate that we have artist and Dean of Fine Arts, Sunny Smith, who's going to be here as a respondent.
Hello, Sunny.
Hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I have so enjoyed these presentations. Each and every one of them so far has been just incredibly impressive and moving, and just like, I'm so inspired. So thank you all. Camille, that Pipolati Reese piece is like one of my all-time favorite works of art. I love that you chose that. I love that you highlighted that. And it's just such a cool way, along with the Namjoon Pike, to be put in the context or the mood of where you wanted to kind of take us with your work. So I just really appreciated that. I'm really interested in the way that you use the film footage, the physicality of film for these window blinds. And that just seems to have so many possibilities. I'm not surprised that people gasped when, they were in the presence of it, because it's sort of metaphoric, but it's material, but it's, there's just a lot for my brain to kind of think about with that. And I can imagine the in-person experience was just really evocative. I'm really interested in the way that you have been thinking about these different kinds of media, the time-based media, but in a material way, in a kind of physical way, whether it's the Super 8 film, VHS, and then you started getting into using your laptop as well. And I think that it's really magical to see just the simplicity of your actions and the kind of results you're getting is just incredibly pleasurable. I also really appreciate your titles a lot. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that relationship between what is depicted on the film. You know, you mentioned the woman's body, I think, in one of the pieces. And then I'm assuming there's some kind of aquarium commercial happening at some level that I may not have direct access to in viewing the piece. Could you talk a little bit more about that relationship between what is on the medium that you're playing around with and then the final kind of abstraction that you create?
So yeah, letting in was specifically designed to see what was attention grabbing or what was worth people's time and effort into like putting their attention into. So it's interesting to see that the woman undressing, essentially a peep show, or like I'm allowing people to be peeping toms at that point, but they kind of deny that in all of this light show. But as for aquarium footage, I'm very aware that it could be taken to different places, but I had valued that those visuals to be sort of full circle, because when you think of video artifacts, it's very blocky, pixelated, glitchy, and sort of graphic. But aquarium footage had been so like full circle in that it came back to the organic, where it comes from, like laptop screens. Yeah, it could be pushed into different organic visuals, but the movement that I saw like progress through as each reproduction was realized, it seemed more like underwater footage to me. And I think it was funny, or like at least ironic, to tie it back to something that was like commercially driven. Yeah.
It's such a great choice, because aquariums are kind of like another screen, right? It's like watching a little movie, you know, it's that sort of liminal kind of space that you bring into the combination of like a peep show and like the blinds, to then bring together something like the physicality and the sensuality, you know, of an aquarium with that kind of viewing experience. I think this is all just a really interesting set of questions that you're exploring, and I'm excited to see what you do next. I also love that you called yourself a menace. Is that the word you used? I wonder if you want to talk about that a little bit more. That was exciting.
I think that particular word came up in another assignment that I had. It was sort of, I had to indulge in an artist that I didn't really connect with, Jeff Koons, and I had to like make up an essay about him. And so seeing his process and how he was so incessant on making these objects, like fully knowing that people are in protest of it, I kind of went full circle in that I kind of related to him in that sense, that I too was a menace, and I had the potential to be him at some point. Like, you know, like we all have the potential to be Jeff Koons, like if it's sparking a little bit of controversy, who's to say that we'd stop like right at that moment?
It's Camille, you're always like amazing. So you know, when you talk about Namjoon Pike and Pepperotti Wrist, and you know, I'm from the School of Art Institute of Chicago, right? So, and then there's a kind of a school of filmmakers who are obsessed with the film texture, and then all those, like, you know, taking and reshooting and then repeating. So, and then I grew up in that culture too, even though I don't make that kind of work at all. But the when I have conversation with you, I always feel, you know, you're from, you know, my kind of circle, you know. So I don't know which generation you belong to, but you know so much about those old things, and then Super 8, VHS, and then you know, running VHS you know, backward. It's amazing actually the way you think about it. And also, but also at the very beginning, you said your parents, kind of in a funny way, that you said like with your parents, like you spent the very sickly, overprotected childhood. So definitely that was really made me so laugh, because that speaks to the process you always go through, and then you always stay at home and then just dealing with the things in front of you, and then starting from the very mundane thing, and then kind of like go through the very, very abstract process. It's a very interesting. So do you feel like you keep just going with this direction, and just being home, and then just being a protected child or adult, and then just kind of like deal with the things around you, which is amazing. But what are you thinking, like in terms of the way what you want to do after graduation?
Yeah, it's very disorienting to say the least. Yeah, trying to find like novel things and things that I find comforting, essentially, which is also like why I have to grapple with the fact of what my plans are after graduation, because the things that I find happiness in, like I can't intend to be happy all the time. So it does require like a mixture, like a perfect mixture of comfort and challenge, which I can't really like. I can seek it out, but it only happens like in very random moments of contemplation, and it requires me to do that hourly long 1,000-mile stare in order to see something as worth contemplating over. So yeah.
Interesting.
Camille, I really love the level of detail that you bring to your work, and that also thinking about like your presentation of your work too, like, and at the exhibition, the kind of, because your work's all about reproduction and it's time-based. So we're always thinking about how do we document this work and then represent it again. And I think just kudos to you for a sort of rigorous way that you continue to find the meaning in your work, the way it's presented, the final steps, the kind of level of conceptual detail that you bring to every step of the production. And so it seems beautiful and seamless and also really innovative.
Yeah, I'm sure there are ways that people can like encode a way to make or like recreate these visuals like through code. And I know that it is possible, but like I'm happy to contribute to that handheld like physicality and tactility to it, because I'm kind of addicted to that ritual of having something in my hands, even though like it's, yeah, again, irony. I'm brought to this sort of state of delirium, being brought up by the internet and technology, and also wanting to touch things, probably touch grass, which I should do, but yeah, I just like cultivate my own suspended language between analog and digital, which is very skewed considering the generation that I'm in.
Which generation are you in? That is the question. Yeah, super exciting. Thank you so much. I thank you all for waiting. I am the worst timer in the world, and but it was so worth it to spend all this time with you. 4 artists, from Nick to Jennyfer to Jamiani and to Camille. We're so grateful for your incredible contribution to CCA and to the class and to this conversation. And I just want to say that you're just rigor in terms of really looking at the personal, the social, political in your works, very inspirational. So here's to everyone. Let's unmic and just applause. I think it's a wrap, guys.
Nice job, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Congratulations.
Congratulations.